for the
equity matrix.
Equity matrix. Sorry, I had a pop-up that came up. And there are certainly some questions we have about that, like have it go out in Spanish, for instance. We would hope that would be the case. There was recently a survey that went out on the bicycle paths along Bodega Avenue. And we're kind of curious how that process went. Was that also done in Spanish? What kind of costs did the city incur? Because there might be similar costs for this effort if the council decides to proceed with it.
Yeah, and so Steve, on that point, I can answer that. Well, I did ask, and I haven't received a response yet, but I did ask Holly Hansen, who is the city's PR person, to what the cost for that survey was, just so that we have a general sense of what that is. You know, the SurveyMonkey electronic survey up on the city's website is generally not very expensive. If we start pushing it out to other, you know, promoting it on putting it to Facebook is one thing, promoting it is a couple $100, so not too much, but it's something, you know, but it costs something. Posting it to Nextdoor is not, you know, there's no cost for a lot of those pieces of it. So the electronic side of it is pretty easy. The city does not have a Spanish translation person on staff. I have actually, we did through ABAG, just give them a couple of weeks, have some option for Spanish translation services assistance for housing element work. I have commented to ABAG and our ABAG reps that, hey, you know, it's more than just the housing element. This is something that smaller communities could really use for a lot of their other components as well. Now, I will say electrification of homes is part of our housing element program. So I can try to see if that will, you know, if they ask if it's part of the housing element, I can say, yeah, it's related to one of our draft programs. And they may go ahead and do the translation for us, which would be for free. So
that's encouraging. And if that doesn't work out, I think we can find some resources to translate this to Spanish and without too much difficulty.
And I know Phoebe has done some as well. She's not entirely comfortable in some of the more technical stuff, but she does have some Spanish language training. She will be starting in early October when she's taking a well-deserved vacation right now, but she'll be starting when she comes back in early October. And so that may be something she can help promote as well through the various organizations that she contacted through the Climate Action Framework process as well.
Good.
I just want to just add in that Dina Allen was really instrumental in getting this going, even though she's not exactly in the energy group. She, you know, this is really an education and energy collaboration. So when we were looking at the various questions, we were trying to just make them as simple and straightforward as we possibly could. Is there anything you want to say about these questions, Steve?
Well, it might help to go through them, or if people have had a chance to peruse the questions, and if there's some wording, or if there's other things that you're interested in, we could consider that as the subgroup of modifying the survey. But as Lisa said, we tried to make it simple. In fact, we had quite a few more questions on the list, and then we decided that it was just adding too much complexity, and the value that we were getting back was, we don't want people just to answer a few questions and then bail from it because it looks too long. So I think I can go ahead and, you know, or Lisa, if you want to start taking questions from people.
Sure, Zeno.
Yeah. So I did electrify my kitchen, and my main obstacle was that I didn't have 240 volt in the kitchen. So often these programs that subsidize electric cooking, they subsidize the equipment and not the wiring. And in the past, I have suggested that the city takes a program like Bayran. They use Bayran for the water upgrade in the houses. And I think there's a need, and maybe the questionnaire can kind of inquire whether there's an interest in that. But there's a need for people to have like a one place where they can get advice about how to rewire their house, what is needed for that. Can they do the Watt diet approach of PG&E, where they stay within the existing amperage, but they have a clever way to use that amperage to electrify their whole house, rather than having to bring in more amperage from the street. So I would like the survey to reflect a kind of a feeling out where people see the biggest need at this moment. You have a question about what stopped you from doing this. There's an option to say, I don't have enough amperage, I believe. But I think it would be helpful to have a little deeper digging there. Is this a big thing? And would people be helped by similar program like Bayran and Water that the city initiated?
So one of the parts with this new federal climate bill that was coming on is there is substantial amount of money for upgrading wiring and for helping homes be able to take more heat pump technology. So that is something that's we are hoping to really let people know about through education. Does that answer your question, Zeno?
Well, I think it's such a rare opportunity to get some more information about what is the first step people want to do. And in my case, it was certainly, I waited a long time to electrify my kitchen because I didn't see how I could get my wiring right. And I think a little bit pushing already to future action in the survey could be helpful.
It sounds like maybe, sorry, it's not my, you didn't call me yet.
Oh, go ahead, Kenna.
It just sounds like maybe at least as a first step to respond to Zeno, that just adding outdated wiring in I have my wiring is not into the obstacles list as one of the options that people could choose.
It's there. It's,
well, it has an
actually,
amperage coming into my home.
well, that's what
But
that
that's different than the wiring inside. Like there's two different issues. Your wiring and how much power is coming in.
how so?
Because like how much power is coming to your box, and then what the actual wiring from your box into the different rooms of your house is.
I think that might be getting a little too technical for this level of a survey. That certainly drives into what can drive up the cost of it. You know, we've all, those of us who have done it know that, yeah, that can add another $1,000 or more for an appliance if you don't have the electrical power, enough power brought to the appliance. And we're trying to write it in such a way that it's simple. And if we have to do a lot of explaining, then we feel like we're going to lose people. But I'm open to suggestions. If you have a specific wording to add something as an obstacle here.
Well, it could be something as simple as on that third one, I may not have enough electric amperage going into my home, or adequate power in a specific room or something like that in the right spot or in my house. It's something like that. We could work it out.
But yeah, exactly. That's the type of suggestion I would make. My question was really about questions 6 and 7. So, you know, one of the principles of public communications is you don't make promises that you can't deliver on. And there's an implied promise to questions 6 and 7 that if people wanted an assistance program, we would have the capacity to create one. So I think I just wanted to bring that to the group and definitely get feedback from staff about those questions.
So I guess the main reason that that question is in there is if there is a need from, if we get a lot of people saying, yes, I would like some assistance, and then we're in the process of applying for a grant to have an assistance program for homeowners to electrify their homes, we have this to back it up.
So I would suggest strongly that we, instead of a yes, no question there, because it's kind of a no brainer to say yes, or maybe not, but we could, maybe in addition, rather than just a free text box for number 7, that we provide some examples that people could choose from and then have a free text box for other. So we give some examples of the types of assistance programs that exist, because it's a very broad offering to just say an assistance program. Does that make sense?
You mean examples of various assistance programs that we might be able to offer? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
So like, is it a financial assistance? Is it a logistics assistance? Like, what are the models of assistance programs that are out there that we might want to create? And, in order, if we were going to craft a grant, we can't just say, we're going to have an assistance program. We have to have a vision of what that looks like. So asking for people for what type of assistance program they actually would be inclined to use. It's just, I'm just thinking out loud here. So I don't have, yeah.
On 7, it's basically what kind of assistance would be the most helpful for you? Like what help do you need? That's
Right.
kind of,
Yeah, it's just people don't know what the options are. What they need is for someone to come do it for them. So it's just food for thought. So I clearly don't have an answer of like, I think these 3 multiple choice options should be there, but I think we could think a little bit more about those questions.
That's
okay.
good feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Woody,
Thanks. Yeah, couple comments I want to touch on. First, I think this is a worthy effort. I think it's aiming to address a real issue. In my own experience of trying to electrify my home over the years, even someone that's involved in sort of the field, it's lessons learned and challenges and all kinds of unexpected obstacles and things. So I think it's and difficulties with installers and all kinds of stuff. So I think it's something that's needed. When I first saw this, the thought that I had was, is the city of Sebastopol the right entity to be issuing a survey like this? And I think there is at least one really good reason, which is that we found, I've been involved in previous surveys and stuff like that, and it matters who the survey is coming from. And, people know what the city of Sebastopol is, right? So if it's some other entity, that might be problematic. So I think it could be a good thing if it's coming from the city. That said, I'm wondering about, you mentioned Sonoma Clean Power and the subsidies and incentives and rebates that they have, but they could also be a collaborator on this. And a couple of things about that is not wanting to reinvent the wheel. If Sonoma Clean Power has done some of this kind of market survey type stuff, and or if they haven't done it or done enough of it, they might want to collaborate. It's really important for Sonoma Clean Power to collaborate with its member jurisdictions. And that could include actually, paying for it or helping to pay for it. And really sort of maybe refining some of the questions. And then also a possible collaboration. I don't know if you talked to the folks at Building Decarbonization Coalition, because I know that they've done a lot of market related research and whatnot. And they're very close by. So, that could be another collaborative opportunity there. And the last thing I want to touch on is that in my conversations with folks that aren't nerds about this, the nomenclature, the lexicon, right? what we call these things. I mean, we got these high efficiency space heaters that are called mini splits, and people are completely like baffled by what does that mean? What's a mini split? What does that mean? What is that? Or heat pump. And I had a big conversation with some of the folks that I work with on this about the difficulty of, heat pump water heater. People don't know what that is. And so I don't know if that can be resolved in this exercise, this survey, but that's one of the things that's a little challenging is these are unfamiliar terms that we're using for a lot of folks. So I'll just stop there. And I forgot to say at the beginning, I need to leave at 4:30. So sorry, I have to leave early.
Those are great suggestions, Woody. Yeah, I think a lot of the point of this survey is just to kind of let people know that there are some of these products out there and that there are rebates and there's money available and, it's a lot of support from various sources. Joshua?
Yeah, thanks. First, I want to say I think the idea of the survey going out is great. And right now we're just haggling about the brass tacks of it and the little details of it. But the notion of the city trying to get a pulse of its residents and as to what issues they're confronting, I think is an excellent first task. I sort of want to tag team or piggyback on what both Woody and Kenna were saying to suggest that while we may well be in a position to present information and help residents make those connections, that the sort of city starting an assistance program might be a whole other level of ask, and that is kind of a big one. But that simply that's a place where it's rife for a collaboration with other entities who are doing the same sort of thing. That it may be that the city can just refer people to regional programs that are doing that same sort of effort of assistance or effort of funding or whatever that would be. And so while it makes sense as far as I'm concerned for the city to have this information and have a presence and have a say in it in terms of helping residents make that effort, that running a full assistance program might be a little beyond what the city could take on by itself. So that's all.
Yeah.
Lisa, sorry to jump in here, but I see that it's 4:22, which means we have 8 minutes of having a quorum. So were we did the energy group feel like you needed an action by the CAC today, or was this more of a discussion information item at this point that you're going to bring back with further refinement? Because I want to make sure we do the action. We get to the action if the action is needed.
Well, that's a good question. But I think that given that there's been some suggestions made that I think are worthy to really look at. My sense, and I'm curious to hear from you, Steve, is that we should do a little bit more work and come back at the next meeting. What do you think?
I agree.
Yeah, thank you for thinking about that.
Yeah, of course. So I will give you back the mic to hand over. I think Sarah had another comment or question.
Yeah.
Well, I did just very quickly, Lisa and Steve. I'm looking at question number 6. I think the idea is, would you like assistance? We don't need to name, is it from the city, the RCPA, the state, or whatever. Just would you like assistance? Would that motivate you to get going? And also as to number 7, what would be the most helpful to you? I think itemizing the choices as you did in question number 10 would be really helpful. You just put that information up front rather than later in the survey. Are you more interested in your kitchen, your bathroom, water conservation, heating and cooling? Because all of us have, I think financially, we just have to establish a priority. We're learning from Zeno's experience. He focused on his kitchen right now. And I think a lot of people will want to do to start somewhere, in a list right there in number 7, I think would help get people going.
So Sarah, just to make sure I understand, you'd suggest putting the specific things that people are interested in doing in 7?
Yes, I think there's a list in question number 10. I just wrote it down. I can't see it right now. Right. It's just like, where do you want assistance? It's
See,
It's getting a more specific answer from them, but you know more about surveys than I do.
no, then not at all. But yeah, I guess that because we think a lot of the obstacles aren't like which room, which product, you know, that kind of thing. It's more like, do I have the power? Do I even know anybody who knows enough to, do I have a contractor who even does this stuff? Do I know about the rebates? You know, those are the kinds of things where not like, do you want a cooktop or do you want a mini split? Or, you know, it's almost more basic than that, if you know what I'm saying. So that's kind of why we kept it so open, but I hear what you're saying too. Thank you.
Yeah, those people that may care more about indoor air quality as compared to greenhouse gas reductions, they may choose to do their stove or oven first before tackling the water heater and the furnace. And those items cost more too, the water heater and the furnace. So I think that's a good idea to push that up and make those as options.
Sounds good. Yeah, Kenna?
Yeah, so I also would encourage, just kind of riffing off of what Sarah was saying, that people's getting a sense of what their priorities are. So SurveyMonkey, it's really easy to have them rank. You know, rank these things in order of importance of what you would want are thinking about changing, right?
So now I'm
get a
just
quick-
trying to figure out why that is information that we need. That's one of those, like, do we need to know if they're more interested in a, you know?
I think so, because we want to know what are the short-term push items that, you know, if everyone checks all these things or a lot of these things, but really they're thinking their rooftop solar is going to happen in 15 years, but tomorrow they want an air conditioner, right? Then it helps us target. It gives us just a lot more information if we know within the list what's important to people.
Yeah, I think one of the big reasons that we wanted to do this is because so many people are going to want air conditioning soon, you know, that I think there's going to be a big push. And if there's any way we can let people know that there's a really energy efficient way to get an air conditioning, you know. But yeah, okay, thanks. Hey, Carrie, I hope that this meeting will get posted as a recording. It would be great if it could, so I could watch
Yeah,
it.
I did start it a little late, so after the department, my report and such, but when Steve was in the middle of presenting and he saw something flash on the screen, I finally got it to work. I was having problems. I closed my whole browser and opened it up again, and then it worked. So
That's
yeah,
great.
so this part of it it will be up on the YouTube, on the meeting TV.
Great,
Yep.
excellent. Yeah, because I really want to make sure I don't miss any of these suggestions.
And Carrie,
Yeah, and we also
do chat
we
report.
record via Zoom, so I can send you the Zoom link too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Will you be able to send them the chat as well?
Oh, yeah, I've been
I
trying to
believe,
copy and paste the items there, so
yes, I can send the chat as well. Yep.
thank you. Was there anybody else who had any kind of suggestions for us here? No? Okay, well, thank you so much, and we will come up with a more hopefully improved version for our next meeting.
Well, this is great. Thank you so much to the Energy Group for getting this out and started, because it is super timely, and I hate that I feel like we're slowing it down a little bit with all of our suggestions. But because there is, I think, just a lot of people, as Sarah says, you know, like they're prioritizing their AC projects, and we want to get the knowledge out there before they pull the trigger on a different kind of cooling system. But at any rate, thank you for the work, and we look forward to bringing it back next meeting. But we'll move on to agenda item B, which is just a short, I believe, conversation. And every time I think something is really short, it turns long. So we'll see. Is that, and it came out of a conversation that Debbie had brought to me during the heat wave of what is our response to something like this heat wave, where we as a climate action committee are very aware of all the pieces that are contributing to this and the fact that this is a climate change event. And are we going to try to be part of any kind of response coordination or preparation, et cetera? And I, very kind of confidently answered Debbie that, well, that's not our wheelhouse. There's a lot of other people working on adaptation, and our job is to really keep laser focused on mitigation, because adaptation is such an immediate reactive need that there are many players on that field, and that we're, our job, as I envision it, is to really hold that mitigation piece. Not that we're not looking for adaptation co-benefits with lots of things, and like a resilience center, et cetera, obviously is at least half mitigation, adaptation as well as mitigation. But for the most part, we're not trying to respond to climate change caused events, or really spend most of our time working on adaptation. But I did want to give an opportunity, if there are people who are like, no, I really think that, our balance is wrong and we should be spending more time on adaptation. I wanted to give people a chance to correct my impression that we're really focusing on mitigation here. Go ahead, Joshua.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of a false dichotomy. It's not really one or the other. It's like we have to do both. It's all hitting the fan these days, and we have to work both angles. So I'm not sure why it's important to make a distinction about our priority, I guess. To me, adaptation almost feels more present, and mitigation is a little past/future, in that there is no way of stopping this, but we want to keep it from getting worse for more than the next 100 years or whatever we're already locked into. So I'm not sure why we would say less of one than the other if we really explore the avenues of responding to the climate situation.
Anybody else have other thoughts? Go ahead, Debbie.
I just think my takeaway from that conversation with you was that both are important, but that we need to have a focus because we can't do everything. And so, our focus is more keeping our eye on the long distance prize and what we can do, there, as opposed to trying to put out, I don't want to use that cliche now. It's not really a good one, fires, leaks as they're happening in the moment. So that was kind of my takeaway, and I saw exactly what you were saying. Like, it made sense to me, because we can be overwhelmed with trying to do, you didn't say this, but I'm saying we could be overwhelmed with trying to do everything. So if we keep our focus on the bigger picture, ultimately, that's what we need to do. So I just want to add.
Thank you, Debbie. Zeno?
Yeah, I think adaptation is a very important thing. I think it brings in new people into this activity that wouldn't be necessarily brought in only through mitigation, because mitigation is a global thing, right? So we can mitigate in Sebastopol if we didn't get all these other worlds working on this in a similar vigor. We just are a small, minuscule part of the emissions. And it's also, to me, and I don't know whether anybody in this group kind of agrees with it, this is a 1,000-year problem. It's a new era. And so we cannot stop thinking about adaptation. We have to deal with that, right? And so I think in the work plan, there is some attention to adaptation, but I think it's important for this to become more worked out, and that we can really only face the immensity of this challenge that mankind is facing by working more on adaptation and bringing more people into the activities that needed to do to reduce emissions and eventually reduce concentration of CO2 and other greenhouse gases. And that's already in there, right? Because that's the thing. We need to reduce that load of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay. Thank you. That is helpful to hear the thoughts of our group members, probably both for me and for Carrie as she's thinking about helping us formulate our work plan. So thank you for the discussion, and always open to hearing more thoughts if people have them as they, as you think about these issues, because they're big issues. Jerry was going to be presenting to us about his green building tour, and I will just hold on to that agenda item in the hopes that he gets out of his MTC meeting with time to present that before 5 p.m. We'll move on to working group reports, and I believe that Education Outreach had a report, and then we'll go on from there. Alex or Debbie, were you going to take that?
Alex, are you there? Do you want to take that?
Hey, this is Alex. I don't have any real updates to report or share that I know of, so I'm not sure if there's something that I missed, or I think we're still working on stuff, but that's what I got right now.
Yeah, I second that. We need to come back to you guys with a fleshed out plan. So that's on us.
So you guys are still in process, working on all of the big projects that you brought to us last time.
Yes.
Sasho.
Yeah, just to report back from sequestration working group, also on behalf of Dina, who's out of town. We had another compost day at the first Saturday. It was a little slower than previous ones, curiously enough, maybe because of the holiday weekend, or maybe because it was crazy hot by 11 or 12. In any case, there was a line of devoted people lined up, 40 minutes before the appointed hour, complaining that we wouldn't let them start shoveling compost until 9 a.m. Dang it. But within the first couple of hours, we got rid of well over half the pile. And I believe that the remnants kind of went away within the next few days. So all in all, still quite successful and on a good track. We will be doing it again the first Saturday of October. And as always, welcome anybody who wants to come help, mostly talk to people and sort of field traffic a little bit. So yeah, all going strong on that front. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yes, I was walking by there thinking, oh, there's so little compost left. I would have to scrape the ground to get it. Any other working groups? Ambrosia, I don't know if Zero Waste has had a chance to meet, and if you have anything to report.
Sorry, I'm doing this on my phone. I don't know where the little buttons are. No, we have not met. I don't really have any updates. On my end as the, representing the hauler. We have I don't know if this is, I'll share it with you anyways. We have been hitting the ground running on SB 1383 audits. So we're going to residential customers right now, as well as commercial and schools, and opening the lids to make sure that there isn't, food waste in the garbage or in the recycling, and vice versa. So there's no recycling in the garbage as well, because those fines are going to start very, very soon. So we're ramping up on that.
That's great to know. Lisa.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm so curious about this, Ambrosia, like how this enforcement is going to work. I'll tell you, we were in the San Francisco airport and there were two, right in the restaurant section, two compost cans, one recycling can, not a trash can in sight. The compost can was just full of plastic. There was absolutely zero correct sorting going on. And I just see this so much. And I see it in this enormous lack of understanding of what goes where. And I don't know, it's such a big problem. And I'm just so curious about the ideas for improving this situation.
So with customer facing receptacles, it's almost impossible to, not have it get contaminated, because especially in the airport, because the rules are different everywhere. In the Midwest, they don't even recycle. So, but as far as being held accountable, so residents, schools, and commercial businesses, their cans and their bins are being audited. And so what'll happen after that is they'll get like a ticket, if you will, and it'll be kept track of in our system. But it's not just Recology that's doing the audits, it's also the county, Zero Waste, and the state of California, which is CalRecycle. So there's teeth in this. There's true dollar fines. So yeah, the forward-facing ones with the customers is that's up to the airport to make sure it's not contaminated, but it probably just goes in the garbage, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that's very exciting. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sarah?
Thank you. I'd just like to add a positive example after Lisa's comments, because I understand her comments so much. I mean, I look at the city cans and they're always a mix downtown. So I want to report on the Gravenstein Apple Fair. I volunteered to be on part of the green team because Sunny asked. When Sunny asked, you always say yes, right? And I sat at the eco table, one of them, where we were sorting with the attendees at the fair between pig food, true compostables, recycling, landfill, and then the reusable silverware. And I can give you these statistics. Comparing 2022 to 2019, which was the last really viable fair before COVID. So that was at 6,000 pounds of pig food. This year was 7,000 pounds of pig food. So our organics are up. That's what we want from SB 1383. And in 2019, it was 8 cubic yards of garbage. I'm comparing these years because they had about the same attendance as well, from 8 cubic yards of garbage down to 3.
Sarah, you did give us this report at the last meeting, and it's such
thank you.
such a great report.
I appreciate your stopping me, because I just have to say I'm so excited about this every time. Pardon me.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I just want to. Gary's here now, and I want to get to his point. Go ahead, Ambrosia.
Oh, that took us years to get the Gravenstein Apple Fair to where it is today. A lot. I've been working with them for 6 years. Volunteering my time too to help out. But yeah, it took a long time, but it's possible. So.
All right, Carrie?
I'm just kind of curious on the audits. So you're opening the lids. Are you opening the garbage bags too to see if there's if someone has a plastic garbage bag? I'm just curious how you managed to do that.
We have bag rippers. If it's safe, we will, but we're not going to go digging through. We're mostly just flipping lids to see kind of what's on the top of the garbage, and if it's obvious that there's food and stuff like that. Yeah. We're looking.
Excellent. Interesting. And so what do you do if someone's green bin is full and they put some garbage? Is it sort of like you can't put garbage in recycling, you just got to keep it till the next week? Is that the
Can you repeat that, Carrie? I'm sorry.
So what happens if you have a garbage and a green bin? Because I'm asking because my green bin is often full, and I will admit that I have said, okay, well, I've got, some potato peels and whatnot. My green bin
I
is
got
full
you.
of green bin stuff. Can I put that in the garbage, or do I have to
mean,
keep my food waste till
don't
next
have
week because my
keep it.
green bin is full?
Yeah, you don't have to keep it. It's if it's like a habitual thing, like if you blatantly just filled up your garbage with garbage, then filled up your your green waste with garbage. It's yeah, they're not going to be sticklers on that. They'll look at your garbage, see that it's full, or whatever, or your compost is full completely.
Yeah, it's actually the other way around for me. Usually
Yeah,
my green and my
yeah.
blue are full and my garbage is not.
I know, right? Which is good. So yeah, we're something like that isn't gonna get you in trouble. It's if you're it's blatant, like
I'm just curious because I kind of see the garbage can as the catch-all if it doesn't necessarily fit or whatever in the other stuff. That's what I'm
right. Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much, Ambrosia. It's nice to have you talking to our meeting. I am going to ask if there's any other working groups that wanted to report out before we loop back to Jerry's green building tour preliminary discussion. I don't see anybody waving their arms. So Jerry, do you want to share your screen? I can't, you're muted.
You have to allow me to share the screen.
Oh, Carrie has to do that because I don't know how. Joshua, do you want to say something in the meantime?
I'm just wondering, just on a check-in front, if we have the time to give Jerry a good discussion this meeting, and if that's desirable, just to put up.
I think he can. I think Jerry, you can do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I absolutely can. Joshua, actually, I was planning on doing it for this meeting, and Carrie and Ken, I think, thought there wasn't enough for the meeting, so they decided I should do it. So I prepared something, and I'm really good at going through 60 slides in 10 minutes.
Go for it.
Okay, and let me just find the slides. Just there we go. Okay, can everybody see the slide? Yes. Okay, good. Are you sure on the right window here so I can move forward? First of all, I mean, start the first slide here. It's basically a proposal for a green homes tour, a self-guided tour, basically, and one of the things I'd like to do in a future meeting is have a discussion, if everybody's interested in this, as to what comprises a green home. And I came up with water conservation, naturalization, insulation, inductive cooking, heat pumps, both water heat pumps and space heat pumps, transportation options we're seeing now with green, changes from gas to electric, which is one that Steve and I have been talking about for quite some time. Electric panel techniques, which Zeno keeps bringing up some things on that. I'm sorry, Zeno keeps bringing that up. Solar and energy storage, energy monitoring options, and there are other aspects, and I'd love to hear from others on that when we can have a longer discussion on it. The origin of this was that probably more than 10 years ago, there was such a tour in the South Bay, and they advertised as a walking tour. I think I took my bicycle in my car, because the homes that we saw were in Atherton and Palo Alto and Mountain View and Sunnyvale, and a variety of different places. It's modeled after the art tours or the garden tours and native plant tours, where people go from home to home, they meet the owners or they meet the contractors. There may be information on it. I've just been in a 3-hour meeting, so I have to talk in that meeting too. And anyway, looking for ways to demonstrate the ability to upgrade and using real world experiences. The reason for doing that is I did it, so can you, which is actually compelling, more compelling than a class or a flyer. Gives early adopters an opportunity to express the pride in the things that they've accomplished. And it allows contractors working in the field highlight what they're doing. It actually helps them find new accounts. and demonstrates the potential market and actually builds the market itself. But I think more than anything, by going to the sites, essentially what you end up doing is you eliminate the primary reason people don't do something. The risk, it's going to cost me too much, it's not going to work, whatever else. They can talk to real people and say, oh, I did this, this is what it costs, this is what I accomplished, and I'm satisfied with it, or don't do this. Other communities are doing this already. San Diego has a regular tour. I found a couple of others, and Zeno sent a couple of to me as well as virtual tours. I'm not suggesting the virtual tours because I think the hands-on is much better. Possible format: the tourists, the people going from home to home, would have a guide with a summary of sites, with the locations and the features just summarized for each one. It's a no-cost tour. Each site's independent. And at each site, they could have handouts. We could help them with the handouts as to what the structure might be, showing what the features are demonstrated in the house. You could also explain what materials are used, what companies. And that's where I learned a lot of the stuff that I've used on my buildings, both in Sunnyvale and here. Owners and trained volunteers. And when I say trained volunteers, it's kind of like the Native Plant Society tours. DJ has often been at somebody else's house. She was trained by the owner of the house. Here's the features on my house that when more people show up and I can't talk to all of them, you can walk them around and show them a few of these things too. Contractors, it would be great to find the contractors, and this is an opportunity for us to start to find the contractors who are actually working in the field. And then sign-in sheets provided for the tourists. I call them tourists because they didn't come up with something else, people taking the tour. If they want more information or if they want to be contacted. And if they don't, they'll just get the information that they want and take it home with them. And then there's sponsoring groups, the city, the AIA, Sonoma Clean Power, and others. Who might participate? Well, us. But also, Carrie suggested Redwood Empire AIA. Boy, were they ever excited about participating. They said, this fits perfectly into our education program. We really want, great idea, let's do it. Sonoma Clean Power. I contacted Chad and he said, oh, you can tour our site here. And I said, you don't understand. I wrote back inflamed and said, you don't understand. And he goes, I get it. Yeah, I'll talk to marketing. I'll talk to the programs group. I think this is a great idea. Hands-on, people actually see what people are doing in their homes. So they were excited about it as well. RCPA, I haven't heard from Tanya yet. I was surprised not to hear anything back. Zeno had also suggested the Sonoma State, the Environmental Tech Center. And there's probably others as well that in a discussion throughout this team here, I would hope we'd identify. So this is not something that would happen overnight. Basically, what I'm hoping we can do to start with is, and have started doing it, identifying who should be involved. This might not just be something that CAC does. This might be something that will take multiple organizations and representatives. We will have initiated it. It's kind of like how Sonoma Clean Power, Silicon Valley Clean Energy occurred. It was a proposal from me to the city of Sunnyvale that we investigate how to do that. And 18 months later, 9 communities are in Silicon Valley Clean Energy. Then we identify the homes, we put the team together, and we look for a nice day. Presentation in 10 minutes.
I knew you could do it. And there's already some stuff coming up in the chat in generating some interest, and I'll let you call on people with questions for the next 3 minutes.
Okay, Lisa.
I think it's excellent. I love it. That's it.
Okay. Kenna, you sent the one suggestion of using the bus. I responded back to you. I think it works best when people kind of amble into each site so they get hands-on person-to-person discussion as opposed to 15 people show up and you're announcing to them. It's that touch which really makes it work. And I thought of the program when I was thinking about everything else that we've been trying to do to get information out to various people.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. I don't see anyone shaking their heads and saying, stop right now, let's not move forward.
Well,
Is-
and if
Yeah, and I
other-
can, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just to say, I'm looking for people to work with me on it because it's getting those organizations together. And after that, I may step away from it, you know, if everybody gets so
Well, and
excited.
I think one of the things, you know, we have, what, 4 members of our DRB are architects and designers. And they're also very interested in sustainable. I'm a landscape architect, and of course Josh is a landscape architect. So, you know, there's a lot of design professionals in Sebastopol, and I think that helps. You know, they probably have, I know some of them will have clients who are interested in showing up or interested in being involved. It's also obviously good PR for architects that are interested in sustainability. My experience is I used to be on the board of the AIA in the East Bay when I lived down in Oakland and Berkeley. And we would do a tour every year, and it had the way they did that is there was a committee that selected the homes every year and kind of curated it. So it wasn't just, 500 people or whatever, just sort of like garden tour people do as well. They would get the brochure and the information kind of put together. They actually sold tickets, and it was a fundraiser. For the organization, if it's, I don't know if that's necessarily what we want to do here, but they had volunteers. If you volunteer to be a docent and kind of help facilitate, then you got to go for free. And so I did that as you basically spend a couple hours saying hi to people, directing them, because the hosts are there, but they're not going to be able to, be with everybody, and they can kind of meander like a host that way. If you need to take out the shoes before going in the house, that kind of stuff, that's what the docents do. And know a little bit about the house that they find out at the beginning of the day. And that one is sort of a self-guided tour, so you can spend as much or little time as you want to with it, and you can do whatever order makes sense for you. And it's a set day, or I think it's a weekend, so there's 2 days that they did it on. It's always a great success. And the interesting thing is someone just, I'm still in connection with a bunch of those architects down there. One of them asked a question about using swimming pools as a water retention system. And I remembered a project in Walnut Creek where they did something very similar. So I responded. I couldn't remember the project, but it turns out the guy who was on the committee, as soon as I said, oh, it had a butterfly, he was like, oh, I know what project you're talking about, and got the information to that person. So that was literally a tour 15 years ago. So it really can make an impression on people, even if they don't do something right now. But it also helps with the head. This is what a heat pump is. It's not a weird thing like some people might think it is. It looks exactly like an air conditioner, only smaller and quieter. It's easy that way.
Yeah.
And there's some sexy stuff out there too that the architects, I'm sure, can point you to.
I am actually going to close discussion on this item because I know that you have a direct line to Jerry, and I think we're giving him a full thumbs up to move this project forward. I'll volunteer my home as a good example of retrofitting a 1906 home with full electrification. But we're going to move on to chair reports. And because I believe Joshua has some material he'd like to cover in our last 2 minutes.
Yes, I just wanted to give a little heads up to people in general, and Kenna, feel free to chime in on this one because you and I and Carrie were having this discussion and it's still only partially formed. We have this looming process of making a work plan for the committee. We are anticipating doing that next month, more or less, with Phoebe's assistance. But we thought that one of the first places to start with that would be for the various working groups to start taking some working group meeting time to look at the suggested actions in the appendix and start to identify what might be your favorites within your topical areas of interest within the frame of your working group to start to work on in the next year or half a year, whatever that might be. The intention then is that when Phoebe comes back, she'll do a little check-in with each of the working groups, help sort of refine the selection process. And then probably later in October, we'll have a whole committee meeting that's devoted entirely to constructing the work plan, sort of put our material from the different working groups on the table, look for some synergies, that sort of thing, and try to get a little more strategic about it. And again, Carrie will help inform that process. Phoebe will help inform that process. But in the meantime, start talking in your working groups about, of the different topical areas and the different actions suggested, what are you all most interested in advancing initially? And that'll just give us a good place to start.
Thank you, Joshua. That's such an important thing to call out. I would like to call out that it was noted that people leaving the committee were given handmade pottery by myself. And I would like to say that that is now going to be reserved for people staying on the committee and reapplying for their seats. So incentives galore. I'd like to hear from anybody in our last remaining minute about any items that you would like added onto next meeting's agenda. Lisa. You're muted.
I'm sorry. I'd like to, if possible, have the updated electrification survey on the agenda.
And I just posted the cost stuff to the chat because I'll forward that email from Holly as well. So.
Thank you. Ambrosia. I see you.
If you guys would like, I can just give a quick update every meeting on what's going on in the hauling world, if that's something you guys would like me to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's helpful. If it's short, you know, our meetings can be variable in terms of what kind of meaty topics we take on, but it is nice to have some items of updates.
Sounds good.
Joshua, do you want to review our action items? I'm sorry, everyone, we're a minute over.
Not a whole lot today, aside from lots of great things are going on in the wings. You're going to keep going on in the wings for particular working groups. With respect to the whole committee, folks should just be aware that there's a couple more related topics to our purview coming up at the next city council meeting on the 20th. And just finally, that working groups should start sifting through the framework for their favorite actions to recommend for next year.
Great, thank you. And last thing that I should have mentioned before, I believe our next presentation to council is coming up on October 4th. So if your working group has any items that you want us to bring forward, make sure you get those to me. And I will now adjourn this meeting until the next regular committee meeting on September 28th.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Great meeting. Thank you.
Look, I'm not forgetting to